Hi, I'm Parneet Jaggi, and this is going to be yet another video on w.b.yeats' poetry, and it's a beautiful poem entitled Lapis Lazuli. Before this, we have discussed the poems by w.b. Yeats like Sailing to Byzantium and Easter 1916. Now, Lapis Lazuli is a beautiful piece of poetry that was written on 25th July 1936 by Yeats and was published in his collection Last Poems. Now, this poem is dedicated to Harry Clifton, who presented him with such a precious stone on his 70th birthday. And Yeats was intrigued and impressed by looking at this stone. And there is a marvelous carving to meditate on the role of art in the face of this tragic world. And in his letter to Dorothy Wellesley in 1935, Yeats has spoken about this large piece of stone that intrigued him to meditate over it. And he describes this stone, Lapis Lazuli, as is carved by some Chinese sculptor, which resembles a mountain with a temple, trees, paths, and an ascetic and a pupil about to climb the mountain. So, symbolically, if we look at the poem, Lapis Lazuli, it elaborates the role of art in giving happiness and joy despite the chaotic situations that could prevail around people or caused by any external forces in his time. Now, if we look at the background of the poem, of course, we have discussed that it has its origin in the gift that was given to him in the form of a large piece of this stone, which is carved by a Chinese sculpture, and this stone is Lapis Lazuli. But it actually delves into a deeper meaning where he talks about art, which has an important role to play when the world is hysterical about war and its consequences. So overall, the speaker of the poem, that is the poet, the narrator, is examining the possibility of harmony and serenity, peace, despite a chaotic environment. Now, we will look at the poem line by line. In stanza 1, he starts with, I have heard that hysterical women say they are sick of the palette and fiddle bow of poets that are always gay. For everybody knows, or else should know, that if nothing drastic is done, aeroplane and zeppelin will come out, pitch like King Billy bomb balls in until the town lie beaten flat. So he says, I have heard what the hysterical women are crying about. I have listened to the cries of the hysterical women. Now, this is a story of 1930s. Because the world was preparing for the Second World War. So we can imagine how hysterical, how maddening the cries of people were in those times. They are sick of the palette and the fiddle bow. So that means these women who are hysterical are actually not happy with the environment they are living in, and they are sick of the painter's palette and the musical instrument of the singer, which is the fiddle, and also the poet's composition, because all of them are happy and gay. So what he means to say here is that the painters with their palette, the musicians with their fiddle bow, and the poets are still happy while the world around is going hysterical. For everybody knows, or else should know, that if nothing drastic is done, he says, because everybody knows this is a reality, that the tension which is mounting up in the sky is that of the impending, the approaching world war. So there is a lot of anxiety, lot of suspense, lot of stress about the coming war and its drastic consequences. So if nothing drastic is done, aeroplanes and zeppelins will come out. So these are the air attacks which will do what? They will pitch like King Billy bomb balls in and until the town lie beaten flat. So these attacks of the air are going to flatten the whole of the cities and the towns, and they are going to leave destruction and devastation all around the world, all around the country. So this is the scene of the 1930s where these people are upset that why the artists are still happy, they are still gay, and on the other hand, the world is full of tension and stress. All perform their tragic play. There's Strutt's Hamlet, there is Lear, that's Ophelia, that's Cordelia. Yet they, should the last scene be there, that great stage curtain about to drop, if worthy their prominent part in the play, do not break up their lines to weep. So now here he says that the art has a fruitful role to play in a world, the world which is overwhelmed by the hysteria of the war. He says, look at the tragic characters in a play. Now these are the characters which appear in the plays of Shakespeare, William Shakespeare. He says, look at these characters. There walks Hamlet on stage. There is Lear. There is Ophelia. We know Ophelia was the heroine of the tragic play Hamlet. And that Cordelia was the daughter of King Lear. They do not break down in tears or even collapse even when the last scene is being enacted and the curtain is about to drop. What they do is they play their parts worthy, prominent parts. They play their roles efficiently. They do not interrupt. They do not break their lines to weep. That means they maintain their integrity. They know that how Hamlet and Lear are happy. Their joy in acting transforms their fear in tragedy, and they know that essentially human life is tragic. So this is how he metaphorically, Yeats gets the allusions from English literature, from the dramas of William Shakespeare, that look at these characters like Hamlet, Lear, Ophelia, Cordelia. They complete their roles, they do not break down their scenes because of weeping, and they know that Hamlet and Lear are happy because they are just acting and they are transforming their fear in tragedy, because basically we all know that human life is tragic. So their acceptance of fate leads to their inner illumination, their realization of a larger understanding of life. All men have aimed at, found and lost, blackout, heaven blazing into the head, tragedy wrought to its uttermost, though Hamlet rambles and Lear rages, and all the drop scenes drop at once upon 100,000 stages, it cannot grow by an inch or an ounce. So he says, though Hamlet and Lear, they both fall into fits and rages, they go crazy on stage. But we see that they have accepted things, they have accepted their fate, and the tragedy of their lives enlarges their visions about life. All men have aimed at, found and lost, blackout. So it's a universal truth that life is a tragic journey, heaven blazing into the head. We all have to be ready for what life has for us in its realm. And all the drop scenes drop at once upon 100,000 stages. It cannot grow by an inch or an ounce. So he says piling of horror on horror in the dramas of Shakespeare also cannot add further to the tragedy of life. They are just stage dramas. Similarly, we are part of the life drama, and if we pile on horror, or we pile up fears and fears, it is not going to add further or minus anything from the tragedy of life. On their own feet they came, or on shipboard, camelback, horseback, assback, muleback, old civilizations put to the sword. Now he is going back to the past, to the historical past. He says civilizations have always come and gone. Why should we feel sorry if even our civilization is destroyed? He says even in the past, in the history, we have seen the conquerors, the invaders, coming on their feet, coming on the shipboard, coming on the camelbacks, horsebacks, assbacks, mulebacks. So they have come in whatever source they had and they have destroyed the old civilizations, put to the sword. So there have been fights and wars and devastations throughout history. Then they and their wisdom went to rack. So what happened? They destroyed the civilizations and their own wisdom also went to an end, came to an end. No handiwork of Callimachus, who handled marble as if it were bronze, made draperies that seemed to rise when sea winds swept the corner, stands. Now note the commas here, note the punctuation here. He says no handiwork stands. That means there is no artwork, no artifact of the famous sculptor like Callimachus. He was the Athenian sculptor who created beautiful, wonderful things of marble as if it were bronze. He created things with such ease. He sculpted statues with such ease. He even made draperies, clothes that seem to rise in the air, but they do not stand. Nothing stands today. Everything is finished. Everything is gone with the time, with the wars, with the wind. He says nothing remains now. His long lamp chimneys, shaped like the stem of a slender palm, stood but a day. So he had made exquisite sculptures. He had made beautiful things out of his marble. He made the bronze lamp in the form of a stern and a slender palm leaf, but nothing exists today. It just stood a day at that time. All things fall and are built again, and those that build them again are gay. So he says everything is destructible. All things are destroyed and are built up again. And those people who build these artworks again can be happy again. They are gay. So the artists are gay in all ages. Two Chinamen, behind them a third, are carved in lapis lazuli. Over them flies a long-legged bird, a symbol of longevity. The third, doubtless a serving man, carries a musical instrument. So now here the poet gives an account of the carved china ware, the beautiful stone which is carved and which also gives the title to the poem. He says, before me now lies this Chinese gift of this semi-precious blue stone called the Lapis Lazuli. And here are three human beings carved on this. Two Chinamen, and behind these two Chinamen there is a third one. So these two Chinamen are, one is an ascetic, a saint, one is his disciple, and there is a third one who follows them carrying a musical instrument and who is their assistant or their servant. Now above all these three flies a long-legged bird whose presence indicates that these three men will have a long life. Now this is symbolic. This long-legged bird is symbolic of the longevity of these three people. And the third assistant, the serving man, the servant also carries a musical instrument. Every discoloration of the stone, every accidental crack or dent seems a watercourse or an avalanche. Now here he is describing that stone, that beautiful lapis lazuli stone which is carved. So he says on this china ware, every discoloration of the stone, whether the color is disturbed somewhere, it is shaded or light somewhere, or there is a crack or there is a dent, it all indicates a scenic view. It indicates a watercourse like a stream or a river or an avalanche, a mountain, or some lofty slope which is covered with snow. The plum and cherry branches are found near the halfway house towards which these Chinamen are climbing. So there are these trees also, and the Chinamen are climbing a mountain. So he says, I feel happy with the thought. Sweetens the little halfway house the Chinamen climb towards. And I means the poet, delight to imagine them seated there. So the poet is feeling very happy, exhilarated with the thought that the Chinamen are seated in that house. There on the mountain and the sky, on all the tragic scene they scare. So they reach the top of the mountain. From there, they view the tragic scene all around. They stare, they look at that tragic scene all around the earth. One asks for mournful melodies. Accomplished fingers begin to play. Their eyes mid many wrinkles, their ancient glittering eyes are gay. So these are the three people who reach the mountain peak. From there, they view the tragic scene of the world all around. One of them desires the same mournful, sad song to be sung, and the expert artists begin to play on the instrument. The eyes of the two Chinese listeners shine brightly because their face is full of wrinkles, but still they appear happy, they appear gay in spite of the tragedy which is prevailing all around in the world. So what these concluding lines indicate to is that poets, artists, saints can view the world tragedy with a great balance and equanimity, as well as they rise above the pain of the rise and fall of civilizations. So this is how Yeats has symbolically written about a gift that he received from his book, and it is a reflective poem on the whole. It reflects on the stance, the beauty of the minds of the poets, the saints, the artists, and he actually touches two main themes: the rise and fall of civilizations and also the triumph of art and philosophy. So in the next video, we will be discussing the main features of the poem, including the stylistic devices. Stay tuned. Thank you for now. Join me for the next video. Bye.